Alrighty guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the Zero Tolerance 0308 Blackout Edition. I love this knife. This is a great knife. Good solid heavy duty overbuilt folder, or is it? And how practical is this knife? We're going to be finding out the answers to those questions today. So let's talk about this knife for a minute. This is a great looking knife. Feels like a really solid heavy duty folding knife. Titanium frame lock. You got titanium, G10, 20 CV blade steel, CPM 20 CV. And you got this cool tiger stripe pattern here. Kind of like the old ZTs from back in the day. Kind of almost has like some overbuilt Hinderer vibes to it. Great solid knife. You've got some relatively thin blade geometry. It's not super thick, and this blade is very broad, giving you a nice slicey profile as to where some of these overbuilt knives just have the thicker geometry. And that's another thing I like about this knife. I love the harpoon shape and the long sweeping belly it has. Still has a good decent tip, but I do have some issues with this knife, and we're going to see how well it actually performs, how practical this knife is. So for me, and this knife in particular, and that's might just be my ZT, but every 100 flips or so, I got to tighten up this pivot. And it slowly works itself loose to where I got some really bad blade wobble. So I tighten it up, and then it gives it a real good controlled drop, and then over time it just gets looser and looser, and I got to tighten it up again. Now an easy fix would probably be to just back off this pivot all the way, throw a little dab of Loctite on there, cinch it down to where I want it, and be done with it. I haven't done that yet. Not sure if that's a common problem with these. I've never heard anybody having that issue before. So that's one issue I have with this thing. Blade looks pretty well centered. Not a huge fan of the ZT pocket clip, but it does fit the hand well. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't look very cool, but it does fit in the hand very well. And I'd rather have that functionality of it feeling good in the hand than looking cool, personally. Let's start this thing off with a spine whack test. That's pretty light tapping. Honestly, it probably won't ever get hit harder than that. Pretty good tap. See, now it's locked up. Interesting. There it goes. So you hit it towards the tip of the blade is the weak spot. The farther towards the tip you go, the easier this thing will fail. Is that a big deal? You're going to have to decide if that's a big deal for you or not. Some lockups seem better than others. Like now, oop, there it goes. But this will not fail on you without that impact towards the tip of the blade. Otherwise, it's solid, but you get that impact towards the tip, and it's hard enough, this blade will, that the lock will fail. All right, let's move on. So right off the bat, this is a good looking knife. I love the texture. It's like alligator skin on the G10. This big opening is probably purely for design. You could argue though that lets you get in the pivot and blow out debris a lot easier. I don't like the original version with the tan scale. Not a huge fan of that. My buddy has a couple of these from USA Made Blade that have wood scales. Those are super cool. And the carbon fiber one's pretty cool. And this one I like too. This one's pretty cool as well. Action's really good. Love the size of this knife. I love the look of this knife. I love carrying this knife. This is just an awesome blade. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put this through some abuse and use. Nothing too crazy, and just see how practical this is. See if this would be a good bushcraft knife. See how it does for EDC tasks, and maybe do some food prep as well. Maybe I should sharpen it. It does cardboard fairly well. We got some bank line. Survivor cord. No issues. This stuff's pretty tough. Pretty much eats through all your everyday task, man-made materials. No problems. Good EDC shape, good sweeping edge, and will make this excel in food prep for sure. I know what you're thinking, but Jake, how well does it bushcraft? Reverse grip is surprisingly good. Kind of nestles into your hand. This is a dry piece of wood. You don't really get a great spot to push off with the back of your finger. With your thumb on here, right where that harpoon starts is okay. If you get too skinny on the swedge or hurting your finger. With that U-notch, not too shabby. Let's face it, this profile of blade shape is not going to excel in carving. Is it doing it though? Yeah. You've got a relatively flat section here to do some carving, do some notches and V-cuts. So I'm going to go right off the bat and say that this handle shape creates a hot spot right there where that hump is. And if you're doing some hard carving and you're pushing into this blade, this creates a very uncomfortable and almost painful spot in your hand. You kind of almost have to either choke up on the top half and not have just grab the top section of the blade, or maybe grab the bottom section of the blade. But this hump definitely is very uncomfortable with hard use. Some green wood. See, and I'm feeling that spot. It's going to absolutely eat through green wood. But for carving, wherever that is making contact with your hand is not comfortable at all. So if you're going to do a lot of carving and stuff, this is definitely not a very ergonomic handle for that, with that hot spot being pretty bad. That's a pretty big negative in the handle if that's what you want this to be. A secondary outdoor knife that's going to do some carving and stuff for you. Certainly we wouldn't baton with this. We're going to do it the folded knife way. Maybe. Something this small, I don't think we have anything to worry about. You know, if you're out in the woods and you're lost and you need to make a fire and this is the only knife you have, the beauty is that you can make a fire with small pieces of wood that are easy to split, right? I really haven't batoned a lot of pieces of wood like this. It just kind of wants to teeter when I get it on there. I don't know, we're still center, we're still tight, we're still locked up good. If you're doing your feather sticks and you're able to get a fire going with it, then you're not doing them wrong. Your feathers don't have to stay on the piece of wood. They don't have to go the whole length of your piece of wood. All you need is thin pieces of wood, curls, thin curls that'll catch a spark or catch a flame, whether it be from a lighter or a ferro rod. And you need them to stay lit long enough to continue to burn whatever pieces of wood that you put on the fire. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. If it doesn't work for you, then you're definitely doing something wrong. But there's really no wrong way to do a feather stick if it works. If the method you're using works, you're not doing it wrong. Just want to throw that in there. So, not the best at feather sticking. I think I would grind this angle a little bit higher maybe, or maybe put a convex the cutting bevel a little bit perhaps. I'm still working with a factory edge. It's just been stropped, and I don't think I've ever touched this with a stone. When you've got a different pocket knife you use every week, your knives tend to not get super dull. I mean, it's not terrible. This handle for carving is extremely non-ergonomic. It's able to get some really thin curls though. It's just kind of hard to control said curls. The whole idea with these curls and the feather sticks is to be able to light them with whatever it is that your lighting method is, whatever it is that you're using. I just like to use a ferro rod because if it lights with a ferro rod, then that's usually what I judge it by. But I mean, if you light your fires with a lighter, just make sure it lights with the lighter if that's what you're going to do. So I'm not sure if this thing will scrape a ferro rod or not. I want to say that it's not going to. It does, but I don't think it does good enough. This wind is not making this easy. Just get one of these and tie it to your firesteel. And then you got a 10 out of 10 every time. Just a thought. When I see this knife, immediately I feel like it makes me think tactical, just right off the bat. Like it has this military-esque, overbuilt, tactical vibe for it. I don't really know much about knife fighting or tactical purposes of a knife, but it does have the reverse grip, the ice pick grip. Pretty comfortable. It gives you the guard and the back right here to kind of get the grip. You do have a little bit of a spot to choke up if you like. Just be careful because you're right there on the edge. And then you can put your thumb back here. And this isn't for tactical purposes. This is just another grip. Sort of put your finger in there and get your thumb gripped in there and get really choked up on it like this. And then this part of your hand kind of nestles into that little curve there. It's kind of like a two-part handle. You can hold it back here, hold it like this, hold it like that. Not bad at drilling. It kind of gets kind of broad pretty quick, but it can do it. It's not terrible. It can perform these tasks, just not comfortably. This thing is going to be great at food prep. This knife is going to be absolutely fantastic at food prep. How much engagement with the cutting edge you get on a flat surface. The slicey profile makes cutting very enjoyable with the geometry. So as an EDC blade, this thing will do just fine. It's nice and slicey. It's pretty strong considering how broad this blade is, adding strength to the kind of thinner geometry, but that long flat also gets you thin behind the edge and gives you a pretty slicey geometry on this thing. The handle is super uncomfortable for bushcraft tasks. Unfortunately, I would love to say that this knife would be great at bushcrafting tasks because I want it to be. and I'm really biased with this knife because I really like this knife, but it just isn't. Just not good at it. It can do a lot of the tasks, but very uncomfortably. You can kind of work your hand around the knife and find grips that are more comfortable than not, but if I'm going out into the woods on a trip and I'm going to be doing any sort of carving or bushcrafting or anything like this, is not coming with me, for sure. So this knife for me, the only place it has is just as an EDC knife for me, and that's about it. Um, really good at food prep. If you're just doing some regular camping, this would be fine. Just bring an extra little carving knife with you if you want. I tried cutting a fish with this. We caught some trout, and I was having trouble getting the point of this to pierce into the fish's belly to gut the fish, which I thought was really weird. So I don't know if it just needs to be sharpened. I mean, when I was doing that, this knife was pretty much brand new to me, and I had brought it out. So not super pokey,